Hello and welcome to another A Nerdy Journey podcast episode, the podcast where we talk to filmmakers about their journeys into the entertainment industry. I'm your host, A.K. Moore, and my guest today is Mary-Madison Baldo, a.k.a. Maddie, who was formerly the production coordinator at Thomas & Friends, All Engines Go, and is now the talent and events coordinator at Hallmark Media. Maddie, thank you so much for joining us here today. It's a pleasure having your just sunshine energy radiating through this podcast finally.
You took the words right out of my mouth, AK. Hi, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well. And honestly, so if you're not watching this on video, you're missing out because Maddie's apartment is just immaculately designed. Between the Thomas the Tank Engine on the bottom left, you have Bold and Brash right next to, right in the background over there. Some fun movie posters. You have just some more fun stuffed animals, and my favorite of all, Toothless, just sitting there in the background. Just wonderful joy, nice, light, bright blue colors everywhere. Just absolutely stunning. Anyway, now that I made all of our audio listeners either jealous or concerned for how much I analyze other people's apartments when I bring them onto the podcast, how are you today?
I'm doing very well. And also, it's still really, at least you're complimenting my apartment. You're not like the person who was like interviewing Lucas Cage or whatever and was just like, wow, what a sad apartment. While he was like, I can hear you. I'm just trying to audition for you.
Oh.
Did you ever hear that?
No, I didn't. Yeah.
Oh,
okay. What's this story, please? Okay. Let's take a quick segue. What is the story?
So there is an actor named Lucas Cage, and he's actually made a very wonderful career for himself of having like supporting actor roles. He was in Euphoria. He was in The White Lotus. Most recently, he's been in a Netflix show called Dead Boy Detectives. And he's this very tall, blonde, sweet, but very awkward looking man, but like handsome. And he has video footage of him doing a video interview / audition with a producer, an executive, a casting guy. And he's sitting in his apartment, which is a very plain, limited studio apartment, but by no means unpleasant to look at. But the casting director and an executive, not knowing that they weren't muted, critiqued his apartment and just like, so while he's preparing for this audition, you just hear these people go like, wow, what a gross apartment, or like, ugh, like, can't he afford anything better? And then he breaks out of his, his preparation and says, no, I can't afford anything better. That's why I'm trying to get a job, and it was tastefully done, charming, but still such a mortifying experience to be a part of. But again, you were lovely about my apartment and my bright colors. So there is not a black thumb upon your record, I promise. I just need to ask if did he get the role that he was auditioning for? I have no idea.
Because that's what I really want to know is, did that end up getting him the role?
Yeah, just out of sheer mortification and embarrassment, the people were like, go ahead, you got it. No, I don't even know if they specified what he was auditioning for, who the person was, but I'm sure whoever's auditioned for these people before are like, ooh, I got you. I know who you are.
Oh, man. Well, that's a good way to at least make yourself stand out from the rest of the people who are interviewing at the time or who are auditioning, because that's, you talk about just blending into the background as an actor. Well, that's one way that they will never forget you.
Absolutely. And again, he's a good actor, so it wouldn't surprise me if he did get the role and he was just like, hello, very coolly to the casting and executives afterwards.
Oof. Man, well, I hope you haven't had any moments like that any recently. But once again, I can't imagine somebody would be able to look at how expertly arranged and crafted your home is over there and be able to at least criticize that. They might question why you have Thomas the Tank in the left-hand corner when you don't have kids, but
For sure.
you know.
But at the same time, my boyfriend and I, Solomon, we sing Disney songs to each other, like if we're in the same space. So I think our neighbors are more concerned about us in that particular regard of just being like, they don't have kids, yet they're full on belting Hercules at this point.
Okay, that was going to be my question. Which songs?
So most recently, oh gosh, what was it? We went back and forth with the opening song for Hercules with the Muses. But then we also, I don't know what we were talking about, but Solomon queued up Breaking Free from the High School Musical, but then also the song from High School Musical 2 that doesn't necessarily end the movie, but it's like the every day of our lives, like that one. And we were in separate rooms and just adopted the roles of Troy and Gabriella.
So you guys are on a real just Disney kick at the moment is all I'm hearing.
Every
Disney.
It's every Disney, and it's not necessarily all the time. Like it's not every day. It is situational for sure, or it's just a song that gets stuck in our heads. And quite often, it's a Disney song because those songs are engineered and written specifically to get in your head.
They absolutely are, and they work. And I don't know if I can forgive them for that.
I mean, they've brought us so much joy and agony and over the years. And so I'll have to forgive them for it.
Well, on that note, let's get down to business. And
perfect. To defeat the Huns?
Yeah, well,
to defeat this interview?
well, I guess. Hopefully not defeat it, just more so I don't have any clever.
Lightly conquer it. Lightly conquer it.
Lightly conquer. You know, it's always funny when you add a like an adjective or an adverb to a word that you don't normally add it to. That's like completely opposite.
A lightly violent, lightly aggressive.
One of my favorite is aggressively mediocre.
Ooh.
Yeah. Mediocre. Right? So any of those is always fun. But let's get to it. So you've had a very interesting journey both into the industry, but also it probably started a lot earlier for you than it did for a lot of the rest of us. Could you touch on kind of like how your upbringing and, you know, anything that you might have done when you were younger helped influence, you know, getting you to where you are now?
Absolutely. So I was very lucky, and I am very lucky to have such an incredibly loving and supportive family. And also, I have two parents who are creative in two different ways. My mom, for example, is very creative with space and design. She can look at the emptiest, most bleakest, like space, and she can turn it into a home. And that is something that I really have aspired to. She's like a Martha Stewart person who just wants to be kind, wants to take you into their home. The amount of lunches that she made for not only my siblings and I, but for our friends, or the countless invitations to have people over for sleepovers or just to vent. And I think that takes a level of creativity to see someone have an enormous amount of empathy and understanding and try to make the situation as wonderful and joyous as humanly possible. So my mom is a creative, but with people, and with creating the most homey, comforting spaces. And I think that's so powerful. So that's something that my mom has taught me throughout my entire life, is how to treat people. And in fact, in front of our kitchen for a majority of our childhood, in blue letters, was the Ralph Waldo Emerson quote, "Be silly, be honest, be kind." So whenever one of my siblings and I did something particularly sassy or rude or dismissive, my mom would be like, "Was that silly?" And sometimes it would be like, "Yes, it was," because it was. But was it honest? No. And was it kind? No. So it was very much living in a household like that of her creation and allowing people to be guests in it, to be family in it is so huge. But then with my dad, he is more of the, the film, art, literature, creative. And I was very fortunate, again, when I was a kid, to have both of my parents look after me and to create such an explorative environment for me and my siblings. My dad had crayons up the wazoo for us to draw on. We went on little field trips. We'd go to museums and we'd interact with the art to the point where maybe got a little too close to a few paintings.
Describe too close.
There was at the Met, they had Monet, and there was, my dad being like, if you get really close, it doesn't look like much, but if you go back, you can see the full landscape. But again, if you're holding a kid by like their armpit under, like gently, of course, and just being like, we're going close, we're going far, you're gonna have a guard or two come up and be like, sir, you can't dangle that toddler that close to a Monet.
I really thought this story was going to end very differently.
You know what? We never caused any property damage. So sorry to disappoint you, AK, but no, we were never arrested.
I was just like thinking like you have your fingerprint on a famous Monet somewhere.
Oh, geez. I feel like if that was the case hundreds of years from now, they're like, why is this child's like indent in there? Or it's like, the thing is, if we were near a Pollock, no one would think twice. They'd be like, it wasn't a cigarette. They would never notice, That man threw cigarette butts and packages and trash into his art. And no one would think twice. But if someone threw like a gusher or something, a gusher into the Pollock, they'd be like, oh, that was always there. But again, my dad was very nurturing of creative play and answering, and both my parents very awesome about answering questions that maybe were too adult for me or maybe too mature, but they treated me with a lot of respect, and my siblings with a lot of respect too. And a lot of our field trips did involve me going to work with my dad. And he is an animation director by trade. He's a fantastic artist. He's a writer. He's a producer. And even though his IMDb doesn't have half of what he has accomplished, he is an incredibly accomplished professional. And again, taught me that creativity is, you can take anything and make it creative. And going to work with him, he worked at, in his early career, he worked with Sesame Street and Pee-wee's Playhouse and did countless commercials. But then a lot of his success came from Blue Sky Studios, which is RIP, no longer with us.
Yeah, I believe I've heard of them a few times before.
Just a few. And what I really loved and what I got from him was just, again, very similar from my mom, is they treat everyone in their vicinity with such respect and such communication, and the improv of yes and instead of but or no. Even if someone didn't have the best suggestion, my dad never shot them down. It was always like, interesting. And if we do this, and then he'd kind of steer it into a different realm, and together create a better suggestion that was uttered.
That is an incredible talent to have.
It's enormously valuable. And I think that is very valuable, not only in the creative industry and the film industry, but just in anything that you are doing. And in any industry, quite honestly, especially if you're working with a team of people, it is so important to treat the people that you're working with respect, with understanding, and at least acknowledgement of like, okay, you are speaking, you have an idea, let me try to get on your level and figure out how we can make this better. And I remember from an early age hearing that and just thinking that just keeping it in my back pocket, or like the back pocket of my brain. I also remember like following him around and watching all of like the animatics and the different stages of animation, and watching him like take notes and have a pencil behind his ear. So it was definitely a childhood full of art and full of design and full of creative play. And my parents had such a huge role in doing that in both their regards. Oh, sorry, my cat just tried to leap on me, and she is so chubby.
Oh.
She failed. Oh no. Okay.
I guess Fred wants to be in the interview too.
She does. Say hello, Fred. Nothing.
No meows.
It was a risk I was willing to take.
I was too. I was hoping Fred would hop into the interview at some point, and it happened earlier than I expected.
Yes, but I'm going to let her down because, again, like, she can get too cuddly, and if she comes up again, I will hold her to the mic so she can purr into it for a little bit. But
perfect.
Again, she is not part of the animation industry, so
well, tangentially, I bet that was interesting for you to see, because when your dad was certainly over at Blue Sky, that was early-ish days in animation.
Oh, yeah.
So seeing how things were back then and how they've kind of changed, especially since you were working in animation for a little bit as well, that's got to have been just a cool thing to just see how things have been progressing and what new practices have been put in place.
It's really interesting to see how technologically we've moved forward in a lot of ways. Blue Sky was also known for winning the Academy Award for Best Animated Short for Bunny, which is a film that is decidedly more adult. I mean, it's a short film about a bunny who finds that a moth is infiltrating their home and finds them very annoying. And it's very oddly spiritual and gorgeous and sad. And it's really interesting to see that that's roughly where they started, not only with like commercials with like for Blockbuster and Rice Krispies and, and Pepsi good God, Energizer, because it's the Energizer Bunny.
Okay.
But, they started with that, and then they moved into trying to be creative with their media and, with Bunny, but then also with something. There was a film called like Adam's Apartment or something, and it was overrun by animated ants, and they did the ant animation for it. I'm pretty sure that's not what it's called. It's like Joe's Apartment. It's something basic like that. But then going into Ice Age, and that being such a milestone for animation at that time. My dad, I love this. It makes me laugh every time. It's a stupid joke, but whenever during the premiere of Ice Age, the first one, there's a scene in which like the audience is introduced to the native community at the top of the waterfall, and the camera pans up the waterfall to show like an aerial shot of the camp. And during the premiere, my dad leans over to me, and I couldn't have been very old, honestly. I think I was like maybe 6 or 7. And he's just like, Maddie, look at that water. That water's so beautiful. It looks so real. And that is just stuck in my head for my entire life, because if you think about a few years later with Finding Nemo and the vast expanses of very realistic looking water,
Moana was about right. Yeah.
Good God, Frozen, like all the water the way that water has transformed through time and technology and technique is insane. But whenever I'm in a theater with my dad and there's a particularly good animated water, I'm like, look at that water, Dad. It's just beautiful. It looks so real.
I hope you do this for any movie, not even animated ones. Like you're watching just like a normal movie, and somebody goes to the sink and fills up their glass with water, and you just turn to them and just. Like,
I'm not that mean. I'm not that mean, but it's not even that mean.
That's just mean. That's just like
it's like, hey, Dad. Look, but it was so funny because he doesn't even remember saying it, but it's so deeply ingrained in my brain that I will never forget it for the rest of my life. It was just so funny. And I think my siblings have done it a few different times to him too. Just been like, wow, that waterfall, it looks like you could reach out and touch it. Like,
Oh, that's such a fun little family, like jabbing.
For sure.
So
my family is known for that for sure.
Well, that is part of being silly, right?
Oh, it's part of being silly. It's part of being honest. Is it kind? sometimes.
If it makes other people laugh, like, hey,
Then there you
you could
go.
fudge the numbers on that one. So
You could definitely debate that quote for
yes.
sure. And I'm sure my sister has.
Oh man, would love to. Man, I feel like I could spend at least 3 more hours on this podcast. But before before I move on to like getting into a little bit more of your breaking into the industry,
Sure.
I know that one of your very earliest pieces of work that got into a movie was at the end of Ice Age.
Yes.
Care to talk about that?
For sure.
Wait, which one? It was multiple?
No, I was just joking. But it was really sweet. My dad, throughout the entire, honestly, throughout his whole work process, has really talked to myself, my siblings, about the process and he's been incredibly open about his days and his, like, the obstacles that he's hit, when he's had a hard day, and he's always explained why certain things have maybe gone awry or how hard he's been working. And today we were literally, Solomon, myself, and my dad went to the Skirball Museum, and he was like, this week, and he just launched into everything that he had to overcome / tackle for the week. But during Ice Age, he was very much like, do you want to see early scenes of this? And he'd bring home animatics on like VHS tape.
Oh my God.
And show us, and like, this is what's going to happen. And it's like these pencil drawings of what a sequence is going to look like. And he's like, use your imagination of what this will look like. The water will be amazing. But during that process, he was also like, we were huge drawers. We loved drawing, and that was something that he really nurtured in us. And he was just like, what about you draw some of the characters? And this was over the course of a few months, quite honestly. And the thing is, when your dad's working on something and you like the characters, they organically come up in your art. So Miranda and I specifically, because Merrick was teeny tiny, were just drawn the characters and experimenting with like what looked good, what didn't look good. And there were some times where he would take the art to the office, and he'd be like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to show everyone what you guys did. And when the movie premiered, when Ice Age premiered, after his water comment, and we watched the whole film, the credits come up, and it's all of the producers, the animators, the directors, all of their children's art, like cave drawings on the backdrop of the credits. And at one point, I just saw my sketch of Sid the Sloth pop up, and I knew it was mine, because there's some ways that you can like recognize your art, like recognize your words. And I just felt my heartbeat like like flutter. It was almost like when you fall in love, or when you're really appreciative of a good friend. That's
so
kind of
he didn't tell you at all that he was doing that.
No, and he leaned forward, and it was the premiere of Ice Age was, I think, a day before my birthday, and he was like, "Happy birthday, Maddie." And it was just like, it was so affirming, and it was such a prideful in a good way moment of like, like my dad sees value in not only me but my siblings and what we are creatively doing. Like, he sees us. He may not be there all the time because he's working so hard, but he makes active choices to make us feel loved. And that just means the absolute world. Like, not only as a kid, but just continuing to be a person and know that there are people in this world, your parents, the chosen family you have, that just are proud of you.
Wow. I am so, I don't want to say jealous of not having like the ability to have parents who are like industry adjacent, or at least that level of creativity and positivity in my upbringing. But man, that must have really done wonders for you as you were getting brought up and wanting to start your own career. Do you remember like at what moment did you decide that you wanted to go into filmmaking as a career?
So, I mean, having two incredibly creative parents who could look at a piece of paper or a space and be just like, I know what to do. That was definitely really wonderful and influential on myself and my siblings, for sure. In high school, I kind of dabbled in, I was very adamant that I was going to be a writer. That was something I really wanted. And my first dream was that I was going to be a teacher and that I was going to be creative on the side. So I was going to write poetry, terrible poetry, or
not worse than mine.
Or draw. We have to compare notes sometime. Some terrible stanzas. Well, that's where we're going to end the podcast. We're just going to read each other our most shameful poetry possible.
Oh boy.
But and then drawing. Like I still really love to draw, but it was that was a main focus. Was like, I want to be a teacher, and all the like art elements are going to be hobbies / side things that will support me and buoy me and make me feel comfortable. But in college, there was a week-long short film competition called Campus Movie Fest, and it still happens. Oh my God, that changed my whole life.
I will never show you my Campus Movie Fest film.
I'm not going to show you mine first. It feels so threatening. But I did one my freshman year, and I had a week, and they gave me a camera and a tripod and a kiss on the forehead and was just like, go forth, my child, make something. And that whole week, I was just, the tripod fell apart, and I was editing on, iMovie. And so I was and this was the first thing that I'd made, a short film that I'd made by myself. But then there was something so euphoric about seeing it, watching it, and and submitting it and being like, go off, like, let's see what happens with this. And it was a short film called Adagio, and it was about a ballet dancer who had to choose between her career and her marriage. And in the end, controversially, she chooses her marriage. And she has her last dance to an empty theater. And wow. I really loved how it came out. I think it was okay. It's not a masterpiece by any sense of the word, but I'm proud of it still.
But the story too behind that, that's an incredible, just like very mature story for somebody who's in college. I definitely was not thinking about stories on that level of that skillful level there, where you're truly putting somebody at odds with two of the most important things in their life, and they have to make a choice. The most simple version of character, if you ask Aaron Sorkin, really.
Yes, true. But then imagine my surprise when, with Campus Movie Fest, you can make a film and it will join the university's body of work. So I think that year about 75 or 80 people submitted films. So I was really, and they choose 16 for the final ceremony. So I was very much in the mindset of, it was cool to do. I'm going to go. It'll be fun. I'll bring my friend. But then to my surprise, seeing it actually showcase with the 16 and then getting, I think the actress who was lovely, her name was Cordelia. She won Best Actress. I won Best Story. I won Best Drama. So it was just like, oh, okay, let's keep doing this. So my whole college career, I was just trying to find opportunities to keep filming and keep getting stories out there, not necessarily mine, but other like-minded individuals who were also studying something different. Mm-hmm. And for a while, it was wonderful. Like, I think at the end, what ended up destroying us was a lot of like ego and drama and people moving on, like graduating. But for what it was, when it was good, it was great. And we did get to make a lot of films and have opportunities like going to the Cannes Film Festival and having our work shown, and having people in our community and in San Francisco, because I went to school in Northern California, acknowledge our work and hire us for commercials or to do voice work. Like, it came with other opportunities that were very valuable. And not only for like what I was trying to create as a career in college, but also as a person. I learned a lot about people and what I wanted during college, which is is great, but didn't come with its rough patches. But all through that, I just realized that I had so many stories in me that I really wanted to communicate. And the dream of being a teacher, even though I did accomplish it, I did become a preschool teacher. It ended up me deciding that I wanted to get a master's degree in film, so people would take me more seriously. So I would have an official degree along with my other degrees that showcased what I was really passionate about.
What
and that
are all of your degrees now that you're using
Sure.
plural here?
I got a degree in 3 bachelor's degrees. So I got a bachelor's degree in English literature. I got one in psychology with a specification in child psychology, and then education, specifically with elementary education. And then I got a master's in film. I'm an overachiever who has a lot of interests, and
my God.
And I took a lot of classes.
How long were you in school for?
I was in school, well, for my bachelor's degrees, I was in school for 5.
Mm-hmm.
And then for my master's degree, I was in for 2. So 7 years altogether.
Man, that is incredibly dedicated for you to do all of that, take on Campus Movie Fest, and have all of these hobbies outside of all of those classes. I'm sure took up so much time.
I also, at one point, had 3 jobs.
How?
I organized my schedule really strategically. I only went to class at night. So a lot of my days were babysitting or nannying, or going to work at the 24/7 pie restaurant that was in near Sonoma State University named Sherry's, which was still like a joyous experience. Quite honestly, I loved that job. Honestly, some of the kindest people ever. But then I worked very briefly at a haunted hotel at the reception desk.
When you say haunted hotel, I'm sorry. Is this a themed hotel, or is it just a hotel that everybody says is haunted?
It's a hotel that's not themed. It is just historic and deeply, deeply haunted.
Okay. I will not be staying at this hotel with you.
I don't think you would. I don't know if you're going to go to Santa Rosa at any point, but it's called the Rose Hotel, and shot one of my films there, which they were very generous about, because I caused a little bit of a stir because we rented out one of the bigger rooms to film, and it was a vampire film, and that is the only film that I am truly embarrassed of. Really, honestly, I didn't do anything particularly awful. I just was not a great actress, and the editing was bad. So did not do me any favors. But there was a scene in a bed with a corpse. But we brought our own sheets from Target, so we weren't going to ruin the sheets of the hotel.
I thought you were about to say we brought our own corpse, as if they had one already, but you just wanted to bring your own.
Did I not mention it was deeply haunted? But we brought our own sheets and put them on the bed, so when the actor who was playing the corpse was covered in blood, we didn't bloody the actual sheets of the hotel. And then when we were done, I don't know who did this, but someone hung the bloodied sheets off the balcony of the hotel room, and the hotel called us and was just like, "Hey, what's going on up there? We are getting reports of blood on the balcony." And we were just mortified. We were like, "Oh my God." But yeah, after that, we apologized profusely, but it has lived down because when lived us down because when I was working as a receptionist very briefly at the haunted hotel, they were like, "Oh yeah, we once had guests hang bloodied bed sheets out the window of one of the rooms." And I was like, "Wow, imagine that. That's so inconsiderate and scary."
So new management didn't know it was you?
No, I don't think it was also under one of our filmmaker friends' names. So I was not attached to it.
Oh man. Well, now they know.
Now they know.
Now they know.
The Rose Hotel will come for me.
So after college, after your plethora of degrees that are more than enough for 5 people over there, you took on preschool teaching.
Yeah.
And then how long did you do that for before you actually found your way into the film industry?
So, AK, I'm going to bore you a little bit more with the trajectory of my job. I actually became a preschool teacher during school. So I was still getting my degrees and I was a preschool teacher. And I realized that as much as I loved that job, I wanted to shift gears and do something more creative. So I ended up going back to an old job that I loved, which was not in the entertainment industry. It was in the wine industry. And then COVID hit, and I decided that I was going to be an IT specialist because my wonderful boss, Kurt, who is one of the best people I've ever met in my whole life, who gave me a huge chance. March, literally, like I was on the phone with unemployment. And Kurt reached out to me and was like, would you want to learn about computers? And he worked at the winery. So he saw what I was able to do with people and was just like, we need someone who talks to people and wants to get to know them and wants to learn something new. So he generously gave me an IT job during COVID, but it still wasn't enough. Like, the IT job was secure and granted me a lot of opportunity, and the people I worked with were nothing short of magical, but I still was I wanted the entertainment industry. I wanted to be creative in a different way. Because again, IT is still creative. It's just, it's not making and being immersed in art and being immersed in people who are more artistically inclined. And, I did a internship at Disney when I was in college, and I worked with this wonderful man named Joe Sitka.
When did you fit in that internship in college?
It was during the summer. I literally came back from the Cannes Film Festival, and in 2 days, I was down in LA doing the Disney internship. I didn't sleep. I don't think I slept. I think I drank an absurd amount of yerba mate to just like be awake and a person, or at least somewhat resembling a person. But Joe was wonderful to work with. And I emailed him and a few other people that I'd worked with at Disney and said, hi, this is where I am right now. This is my resume. I really would love an opportunity to work at the entertainment industry. Please let me know if there's anything that comes up. And Joe, just being lovely, was just like, I'm working at Mattel right now and they're looking for a production coordinator. Does that sound like something you'd like to do? And I went, abso-fucking-lutely. Get me in the interview chair. Like, tell me what I need to do. I'll give you blood. I'll give you.
Well, you had some left over from the sheets, obviously.
Oh, absolutely. Just wring it out. Like, yeah, I'll just mail them to him. Gross. But what ended up happening was very sweetly, like I went through 3 different interviews and they all were so responsive and wonderful and offered me this opportunity. And I wanted it. Sure, it didn't pay me as much as it wasn't as secure as IT. But it gave me the opportunity to learn something new and be immersed in something that I felt was missing from my life. And so I said yes. And God, I'm so glad I did that, because I'm very grateful for every opportunity I've ever had, honestly, but I really appreciate the kindness that people have shown me. Kurt, my current boss, Shayna at Hallmark, and Joe for just looking at my resume, really looking at it and going, oh, she's got people skills. She's a good team player. She's a good leader. She has the backup and the degrees and the experience. Because what I've often found, even with my master's degree, people still look at it and still don't see what I am able to do. Like, they're like, sure, you got a degree in film, but you have only technically worked in the major film industry for 6 years. Whereas like I've been doing a lot of independent film and doing commercials and stuff like that for way longer. But a lot of people zero in on the fact that I've been a hospitality manager, an IT specialist, and they're like, oh, this girl's all over the place. And that's the wrong way to look at a resume. And I've been incredibly fortunate to have people in my corner who have looked and really seen it. And that has made all the difference in the world. So Joe gave me the opportunity to work for Mattel, and I worked there for almost 3 years. And it was educational and awesome. And I met extraordinary, wonderful people during it and learned a lot. And I'm very grateful for that experience. Like, I can't say anything truly egregious.
Can you talk about, so while you were at Thomas and Friends, what are some like parts of the job as a production coordinator on an animated show for kids that are just like, what are just some things that you didn't realize that job would entail when you got it that you think would just be interesting for people to hear about?
I think this is not, I don't want to ding, but I'm going to slightly ding. I thought it was going to be a little bit more creatively inclined, but what it is mostly is making sure that people, making sure that the creative producers, the writers, the story editor, both sister companies, because we were working with Nelvana on Thomas, are talking to each other. They're getting the materials that they need. So a lot of it is emails. A lot of it is getting on calls and promising that you will reach out to the story editor to make sure that he made the edits that he said he would in the first draft, and watching the episodes over and over, and from animatic to fully fledged with music. And making sure that it is fully realized, and not only that, but it doesn't have any mistakes. Because there are a lot of times where there were times where we'd watch them and I would see like a line didn't make sense, or like they colored there was one time where they took a character, a beloved Thomas character, and just made him purple to put in the background. And the team was just like, oh my God, we can't, that is not okay. Who told someone that they could do that? And it was closer to locked picture. And we were like, oh my God, why did no one see this? Or a lot of playtime and a lot of connection with brand and toy and legal, which I think is really interesting because we're working for a toy company. Mm-hmm. So we have to make sure that the show, Thomas, I also worked on Polly Pocket, Monster High, and Barbie, all of those are being honest and representing the toy in a positive way. So having Thomas be more aimed towards preschoolers with a musicality to it, which are the musicals, but then also having Barbie, make sure that she's in her colors, that the Pantone pink is the Pantone Barbie pink. And, with Polly Pocket, which was very interesting, is twisting the toy, putting a twist on the toy that it makes sense from a narrative perspective and still is creative, but then also borrowing from other existing properties. There was when I first got hired, there was a whole special for Polly Pocket that was like Hunger Games, but for kids. And there was no murdering. It was just kind of like these kids have different pocket powers, and they are going to compete against each other to figure out who has the best pocket power. And it's on an island, and the discussions of we've got to make it Hunger Games, but not Hunger Games, and figuring out what's accessible and kid-like and friendly, but still taking elements from other things to make it successful. It's very interesting. And also with Monster High specifically, it was being very conscious of current times and making sure that the characters who were differently gendered or come from or were diverse had diverse writers writing those episodes with those focuses, which is so awesome. And I loved hearing the ideas about, culture and diversity and relationships being discussed for a Nickelodeon show about monsters. So I mean, I gave you a lot there, but it was
Yeah.
a lot of like, wow, I didn't realize that there was a lot of emailing with being a production coordinator. A lot of making sure that you were the go-to person and that you were approachable was a huge thing. And quite honestly, with my work and who I am as a person, that comes very naturally to me. But it's one of the things where if you were just looking at a LinkedIn post for a production coordinator, it wouldn't say like you need to know people and you need to have relationships with your coworkers where they're playful and funny and you can be sarcastic with that one guy, like our wonderful story editor on Thomas has a sense of humor that's shriveled and black and ridiculous. And there were times where I would talk to him and I would match his humor, but then also say, I really need those notes in as soon as humanly possible. If you're not like digging in a graveyard like tonight, like can you please set aside some time to like press play or like that? But then with another person, it's like texting them rather than teamsing them, using Slack instead of Teams, just to make sure that what you needed and what the production needed was on someone's radar. So it's a lot of push and pull and figuring out how people work.
And I know just from my own job, that can be tough because I would say about 75% of the people, if not more, that I communicate with on a daily basis, I have never spoken to on the phone or met in person. So it's like you said, matching tone is super difficult sometimes. And at least for me, I keep it very formal until I see the other person break because I don't know even the age, the gender, like I don't know anything about these people whatsoever other than the name on there and occasionally their job title if it's listed. So trying to figure out what is the best, most professional manner to reach out to these people and say, hey, can you get me that thing I asked you for 2 days ago? But also, trying to sound like a human at the same time. It's difficult. I personally wish I had met most of the people who I communicate with because it would be so much easier. Just, pick up the phone or text them or something. But yeah, it's almost all email and people I've never met.
I think it's also, unfortunately, because of the times we live in with COVID, with working from home, as important as it is for people who need to work from home, who find it essential to work from home, would much rather, myself, I want to go into an office. I want to get to know the people that are not only in my team, but are on my floor and building and go to lunch with different people and learn about their trajectory. And that's something that unfortunately, COVID and our modern times have stilted. And that really takes away from getting to know people. And I think would hinder the job of a production coordinator. A production coordinator would have to make the first step to be silly or make a joke via email or take the opportunity to be like, hi, I want to talk to you about your job and about the show. Can we schedule a Teams lunch or something? Or can I meet you for coffee sometime? Their initiative needs to be made nowadays that I don't think existed prior to COVID. And that I think people would get more along, and I honestly I do believe that projects would move more smoothly if people took the time to get to know the people that they're not only working with but are working around.
I could not agree anymore about everything that you just said. I love just knowing who I'm talking to and working with, because when you have a personal rapport with somebody, the working relationship is so much nicer.
Oh my gosh, for sure. And it feels good because it's one of those things where I know not everybody had the most positive school experience. Like myself included, middle school was rough.
School sucked.
Middle school was for whoever, like, whenever I meet someone and they say that middle school was fine, I don't believe them for a second. Or I don't think that I can that's one thing I can't. I'm like, why was it just fine? Why did you have a good time? Like, no one should have a good time in middle school.
I liked high school. High school was great for me, but middle school sucked.
No, it's terrible. And I don't understand people who had a good time. Like, that shouldn't exist. Like, it should just be a hellhole for everyone. But
I'm going to get that on a quote, on a shirt.
Yeah. It should just be a hellhole for everyone right here. But I was going to say, what was really great about school, I would also say for preschool, kindergarten, you're meeting people who aren't your immediate family or not in your neighborhood. You are making friends. You are creating a community. And that is something that we lose. Like, we leave college and then it's work. But then afterwards, it's work, or whoever, you get involved in a club or an outside class, or you frequent a Cheers bar or something and you have a community there. But with COVID and with the modern workplace, that opportunity to make friends has been taken away. And that's invaluable, to have a community of people and to continue to be social. And you have to take initiative now. And it's a real truth. It is real, and it's the truth. And it's difficult. And so I'm going on a tangent.
I personally think that everybody just needs to start talking to the new ChatGPT model with Scarlett Johansson's voice on it. That,
No,
that's what we need. That's absolutely what everybody could use. A little bit of
because then we're gonna be horny too. Like, it's not gonna, like, we're not gonna get anything done. We're gonna get even less done. Okay?
Oh my God, you are yes. You took my completely ridiculous comment and made it even funnier. So thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, anding from you as always. Good energy. So you've moved on from Thomas and Friends now.
Yes,
and you are at Hallmark. Can you talk a little bit about how you got that job? Because obviously, as you mentioned, people look at anybody's resume and they're like, nah. And you don't really get a good sense of who that human is just from a resume, because they might not have the specific skill you're looking for, but they could be perfect for that job. And then, also just about the job in general, would love to know, what it's like working at Hallmark. But yeah, go.
Again, it is what I value most in this life is communication, and clear, great, creative communication. And when I was still working at Mattel, I actually live very close to Hallmark. So I see it when I drive around or walk around. And I just thought, wow, that would be so fun to work there. What a cool company that is like over 100 years old and has all of the, like, has expanded from cards similar to Mattel. They started with like one thing and have expanded exponentially. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's incredibly smart and interesting. And I saw a position open up for, I think it was a script coordinator at first. And on LinkedIn, I formally sent in my resume, but I did research and I found out who was head of HR. And I contacted them directly and with my resume and said, I would love this job. This is what I do. And this is what I'd love to grow into. And she was incredibly responsive and offered me an interview. And I interviewed it, but I didn't get it. And I was just like, thank you so much for such a great interview, though, because she was warm and she asked great questions. And I really appreciated how she did her job. And I told her that. I said, I really appreciate this interview process. It was so easy and I really value you. And if anything else comes up, please let me know. And I think I stuck out in her mind because I did that very human thing. And she offered me another opportunity to interview for. And at this point, it was an executive assistant job. And I thought this could be something different for me. It's not creative, but it is creative.
You have to be
Um,
quite creative as an executive assistant. From all of the EAs that I know out there, my God, I couldn't do that job. It's the amount of things that you don't have a set schedule ever. Your
no,
day is completely changing, and I don't know that I could do that.
I completely get you, but and I was really open to the idea of trying something different
Mm.
because the thing about me, and I think I'm very flexible with my dreams. Like I actually had a conversation with my boyfriend Solomon about this and about flexibility of dreams. As long as a job or an opportunity has a strong root of something that you love and hold dear, I myself am like, let's do this. You know, like with the IT job, for example, it was learning something that I'd never thought I would learn ever. But at the root of it, it was helping people. It was talking to people. It was being part of a team and it was being a leader. And I went, those are really strong roots there. Let's see where this grows. And for the executive assistant job, again, champagne glass filled to the like a half full for sure. Just going, sure, it has these. It maybe be out of my field. Maybe it's not something like, but I'm flexible and I can possibly learn how to adapt better to other people. Let's try it. And I got very close, but I didn't get that job either. And this other job popped up, talent and event coordinator. And I just thought to myself, wow, that has multiple roots. It's something different, but it has talking to people, it has creating something, an event, a physical party or festival, like, and choosing the florals and talking to people and figuring out how to make it special and how to treat people special, because part of the job is also getting our Hallmark talent birthday gifts, of remembering when their birthday is, and thinking and asking them what their gift preferences are so we can curate something special for them. Like, that's great. That has so much love in it that I personally, again, I think of my mom, honestly, of just taking someone and making them feel special. So I said, okay, let's do that. And I reached out to the HR manager and I said, do you remember me? I'd really love to do this. And she was like, I'm putting you through immediately. And that was huge. That's, again, I had a great experience with her. I continue to that's my cat feeder.
That was your cat feeder?
Yes. Side note, my automatic cat feeder has a recording of myself and my boyfriend Solomon's voices calling our cats to come get their food.
That I don't even know how to respond to this other than I want to be over at your place when your cat feeder goes off now.
It's very funny. And it's also really funny to see what their mixed reactions are. Because right now, Fred is sitting on the dining room chair, just completely in a ball. And her eyes just, as soon as it went off, her eyes just flicked open and she's just staring at it. But it's in a grumpy way where I'm like, I feel like she's not hungry. She's just irritated that it woke her up. But long story short, I was put through the interviews with my now bosses, and they were joyous. They were warm. They were enthusiastic. They were incredibly they asked me great questions. I asked them questions back because I think what's really important in interviews, if for those who are preparing for interviews, is really listen to what they're telling you and try to come up with a question about them. Like, they're asking you about your experience, but personally speaking, I'm really curious about why the person who's interviewing me, the producer, the writer, the manager, why are they at Hallmark? Why are they at their job? Why have they stayed for 5 years or 8 years? And I ask that because I would hope that they would tell me the truth, or I would learn more about them or about the company, and that's so valuable. And by asking those questions that are in that vein, they responded so well to me, where they're like, wow, what a great question. No one's ever asked that. And from those wonderful interviews, I got the job. And I've been there for about 3 months now, I would say. And it is a absolute roller coaster. Every day is busy. Like from 9 o'clock in the morning, sometimes 8:30 until 6 o'clock at night. It is emailing, it is finding out information, it is creating Excel spreadsheet out of Excel spreadsheet. It's finding out like, all right, people, we have T-minus 2 weeks until the For Your Consideration Emmy campaign for The Way Home, which is our wonderful time traveling family drama on Hallmark. So with Andy McDowell and Kyler Lee, it's so good. It's so fun. It's like, it's 3 generations of women trying to connect through time and space. It's awesome.
I was just looking through my email to see if I got the FYC campaign for that, because I thought I had, but no.
I mean, it was last month was my first event, was our first event, and it went really, really well. But again, it was like finding the flowers. What kind of ambiance do we want? What food would set the tone? It's all these little beautiful details that I live for. It's like, we're going to have a 2 charcuterie stations. And, oh, will that be enough? And, oh, what kind of napkins are we going to have? And what is the special cocktail? Like, I love all that. And that is something, and again, it's constantly talking to people. It's constantly organizing.
And creative.
And it's so fun. It's just so fun. There's no shortage of a challenge or a last minute assignment. Like there was around Mother's Day, we wanted to do like some sort of Mother's Day campaign, and we had an hour to kind of look at all our Hallmark stars and say like, what people do we think would want to post about Mother's Day? And based on their social media and the projects they've done. And like, it's research too, which is bizarre to think about, but it is. And researching places that you've never been. And I think that that's really interesting and ridiculous, but so much fun.
I am so glad to hear that you found a job at the moment that checks so many boxes of what you're looking for.
Yeah. And also Hallmark is, again, like it's 100+ years of work of a company. Plus they own Crayola, which I had no idea that they owned. That. Yeah. And how they have expanded from their cards to movies and TV shows and figuring out the different ways in which they can grow in the future. Like that's so huge to be a part of a company that also a lot of my meetings are mostly women. And it's such an interesting environment to be in because you walk into the office and everyone's like talking about their weekends, or they're like, oh, we brought donuts in today. And there's just like this innate, like kind of like, not to be dismissive, but just like feminine energy of just like, I love your skirt today. And how was your weekend? And seeing people's desks decorated. And something about Hallmark very, very recently happened was to further curate relationships within the company. We now have the Crown Cafe, which is free coffee Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays in a patio setting under string lights and umbrellas to encourage workers in the building to talk to each other and to meet. And that is so, think about a company that was just like, some people put in some suggestions, we're actually going to do them. And that is so personal and human and valuable. And I it's a simple thing of getting free coffee and being around your peers, but that's the connection that I feel like we're missing.
You have changed a lot of my perceptions about Hallmark in a very positive way. Wow.
I mean, some of the movies are also kind of fun. Like the best one that I've seen is called Hanukkah on Rye. And it is about 2 deli owners who meet and they don't like each other because they're rivals. But their bubbies sign them up for a dating service through letters. And so they fall in love through their letters, but in reality, they're butting heads because, his company is going to potentially put her homegrown business out of business. And it was like You've Got Mail, but with latkes. It was great.
I want to see Solomon write a version of that. Or a sequel.
I just want to see I would love to, Solomon and I have talked about potentially writing something like a romance together. But with the Hallmark formula, I have to keep watching them. I think that I will preface it from there, because there is one that's coming out that we're actually preparing for an event for your consideration. It's called A Biltmore Christmas. And from what I've seen, it is swoony and fun and has an element of time travel and history to it and romance, and the chemistry between the leads is solid. So I still need to watch more, but just from the ones that are the most popular, there is a formula to it that is simple and easy. And while there is so much value in that, I feel like my horror sensibilities maybe don't lend itself to the Hallmark formula.
I would love to see you try. I would love to see what a Mary-Madison Baldo horror Hallmark movie looks like.
It would have to be supernatural for sure. Yes. It would have to be a vampire. But then it goes into Twilight, or Twilight is the Hallmark equivalent of of vampires and supernatural. It would have to be very playful, or ghosts or something. We have a ghost one. It's 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 1 ghost.
Wait, and that's the name of it?
That's the name of it.
That's such a long name. Oh my God.
Which that one is fun. I like that. But if there has to be more spooky horror, spooky Hallmark. But we also have a mystery channel, which also gets kind of into the thrillery horrorness. There's some fun murder in there. So I feel like that would be more my taste. It would be writing a mystery.
Murder.
Fun murder.
Fun murder.
There's the Picture Perfect series, and then there's the crossword mysteries and things like that I think would be more my speed. But it is really interesting to watch Hallmark's movies and see what is very popular and who is very popular, and look at them and go, yeah, I can see it, or I got this, or there's value in it. Because people make fun of Hallmark, but there's still there's so much value in that, in what Hallmark has been able to accomplish with its body of work.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, people still watch it. They're still putting money into making these movies because people are still watching it. So it has an audience and it connects with them, and you can't take that away from anybody.
I mean, and Hallmark's and Netflix and other companies are trying to copy Hallmark's formula for that exact reason, to the point where they've actually some recent projects, they did a Lindsay Lohan Irish Wish, I think it was called, and if it didn't have a Netflix boom on the front, I would have thought that was freaking Hallmark. So people see the value and the sweetness there. And again, that's why the Hallmark keeps making them, and why people are now trying to poach that formula.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, all I can think about right now is I want you to re-record the Netflix logo intro just so I can hear your voice saying that every time I turn on Netflix.
Here, do you want me to do it? And then later in your video portion, you can put it there.
Perfect. Go right ahead.
All right. Boom.
Lovely. We're gonna make so many of this that Netflix is gonna sue. Dreams, right? Getting sued by big companies. What is more American?
Yeah, we could go into it. We could go back and forth. But this isn't the podcast.
No. That's a very different podcast that I don't want to touch at all. So you have had such a storied career so far, and you're still so young and just in the thick of, trying to figure out where you're going. Is there any recommendations that you have, besides all of the stories that you've told in little tidbits here and there, that you would have for somebody who is trying to break into film and TV? What are your go-tos that you would tell somebody who's new or green?
I really think, and again, I'm going to sound like a broken record this entire podcast. It's really going to be like, find out who does your dream job, or does one of your dream jobs, and reach out to them. Make the effort, do the research, like look at who this person is, where they've come from, and reach out to them and ask them for advice. Like, will you get a response back? Maybe, maybe not. But at the very least, someone could reach back out to you and give you advice, or give you a recommendation, or put you or give them their advice, their trajectory, and maybe give you the same advice or different advice. It all has to do with connecting with people, and without other people, we are dead in the water. And I just remember being in college and asking and wanting to make these films and asking people for favors, like, leave this classroom open for me tonight so that way I can film in it, or can I film in your small business, or can I rent this costume? Can I go into the store, and do you have broken toys that I could in the back room that I could put as one of my sets? I promise I'll take pictures of them and return them to you. Just asking for help has been I think, one of the most important lessons I've ever learned, just being a person, because I used to be so scared of it. I used to think that asking someone for a favor or asking for help was a sign that I couldn't do it myself. And that was weak of me. And I think that is so poisonous a thought. And it really negatively affected me as a person and as a professional, until I learned the lesson that everyone just wants to keep connecting with others. So if you are interested in a specific writer, or a makeup artist, or a cinematographer, someone that you admire, or you look at a film that you really love and you go, oh, who was the colorist on that? Mm-hmm. You can potentially reach, and with social media and with LinkedIn, there are ways in which you can connect with these people. So connecting with them in that way is so valuable, and I think would be really great. A good recommendation. Again, will it work? Who knows? But at the very least, you tried.
It doesn't hurt to try at all.
At all.
I think there was a Star Wars quote about something just like that.
Do or do not. There is no try.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Oh, wait.
Ah.
Do or do not. There is no try.
Okay, so wait, is that actually Yoda in a Christmas costume, or is that...
He's just a little, like, he's like in his little robe. He's just starry-eyed and happy. That's all.
Ah, perfect metaphor for your life.
Yeah, exactly. Starry-eyed and happy. That's my memoir title.
Honestly, I would read it in a heartbeat. If it's anything like how this interview is, like, I would read that in a heartbeat.
But yeah, connecting with people, also doing research on film, like some of your favorite film productions, and seeing what the different jobs are. Because who knows? You could realize that your dream is to be a best boy, or you want to be a designer for something, or, you do your research, reach out to people, find the companies or the productions that you really like or would potentially want to be a part of, and do your research and try to figure out how you could possibly connect with them. I know I went to school for a really long time, but I love school. I love learning new things. So if, you look at a job posting and it says, you need to be really good at Excel, sign up for an Excel class, or watch some YouTube and try to figure out the tips and tricks of creating the best spreadsheet possible. Take a test. So that way, when someone looks at your resume, you can say that you were Excel certified. These little things, these little bits of effort, I think make an impression, especially if you do more of them and really keep sharpening. I think you just can't afford to get lackadaisical as well. Not to say work every single day, but try something new, set goals for yourself, reach out to people. I think that that's such a rule. Those are rules of thumb that I will continue to do no matter where I go.
I think that you just summed it up once again perfectly. You are a natural born storyteller, and I can't even say storyteller without screwing up.
Storyteller.
See, you could say it 5 times in a row quicker than I could say it once.
Ba-bum.
Putting the Netflix logo there again. So how can people find you, follow your journey? And I guess, yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I'm not going to give you my email or phone number.
That's understandable.
But if people do want to get a hold of me or do want to talk to me or talk more about the industry or writing, or you just want a friend, honestly, Instagram is the best way to get a hold of me, which is at Mary-Madison Baldo, which I'm sure AK will put some kind of description.
Yeah.
But I'm very responsive because I absolutely adore visual mediums. So Pinterest and Instagram are my loves. But yes, at Mary-Madison Baldo on Instagram is where people could get a hold of me or see some of my work.
Awesome. And I know that this is probably a little bit more loaded of a final question, but
all right.
What is next up for you?
Oh gosh. Okay. I honestly want to continue working in events and talent for an elongated period of time. I want to really figure out how that job works. And be as good as I possibly can at it. And I talked about roots before, but I can see myself becoming an events and talent manager, or maybe even a head of talent and events. Maybe not maybe at Hallmark, maybe somewhere else where they would need someone like me. But that's to be in this job and absolutely love it and be excited at the busy work. That's something I haven't felt in a while. So I want to keep following that as much as possible. In the meantime, I'm still going to keep writing and researching. And I also am the co-boss of an LA event called Nerd Night.
I don't even know how I didn't bring that up.
It's okay. Myself, Solomon, Heath Rumble, and Nicholas Peters, we are the co-bosses of a local LA event called Nerd Night, which happens once a month, the third Tuesday of every month. And it is basically TED Talks with beer and local food. And it's 3 very passionate speakers talking about something that's nerdy, geeky, or dorky that they're very passionate about and want to share with people. So that brings a whole different level of joy to my life too. And that's also event planning. That's also talking to people and being like, I think you'd be good at this. Like, please let me know if you ever want to present. A lot of where my life seems to be going is in an event arrow, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So I want to keep following that arrow until it drops off or it stops and I have to find a new dream. But right now that seems like the perfect dream for me.
Wow. I am so happy that you are passionate about the busy work, as you said, and just about everything that you have going on in your life. As I said in the beginning, you are always a ball of sunshine to be around and always just have the most eloquent way of speaking about just about any topic you can put up. And now I know it's because you have 4 or 5 degrees, which that makes sense. But
so no mistake, baby.
Well, thank you.
Some people have Yale, some people have Brown.
Yeah, but none of them have as many degrees as you do. They couldn't afford it at those colleges that you just mentioned. But I digress. Maddie, thank you so much for joining us here today and talking about everything that you've had going on. And I can't wait to have you back to talk about more of the events that you've started to plan once you're there for a little bit longer. And I know I've talked to some of my other friends who I brought on about doing more panel-based episodes as well, where we can all kind of play off each other. And would love to absolutely have you on for one of those in the future. If any
That
of
would
you,
be so fun.
I can't wait. And if anybody out there listening and or watching has anything that they'd want me to ask Maddie in a future episode, please go ahead and let me know. Without further ado, thank you everybody for watching and or listening, depending on how you are listening and or watching to this content. I really need to get better at these endings, but we are at A Nerdy Journey everywhere on every social media platform and on Spotify, A Nerdy Journey. Thank you so much, and I will see you on the next one.
Boom.
Oh, like a true writer, you know how to do a callback.